A man woke up screaming from a nightmare of being chased, but the moment he opened his eyes, he laughed. It was never real. Worry is a nightmare of the waking mind, an illusion of your brain that keeps you in a cycle of fear and doubt. It feels real because your mind knows you. It knows your deepest secrets, your fears, and your insecurities. Carl Jung saw worry for what it truly is, an illusion that imprisons you in endless anxiety instead of living freely in the present moment. And the more you feed worry, the more power it has over you. However, once you understand how it tricks you, you'll be able to defeat it at every turn. So with that in mind, in this video, we'll explore Carl Jung's teachings on how to break free from worry and reclaim back your sense of peace. Our minds often convince us into believing that by imagining all the possible negative outcomes, we're somehow preventing them from happening, or at least preparing for them. But this sense of preparation is ultimately an illusion. When we worry, we're not actually solving problems or taking constructive steps towards solutions. Instead, we're simply rehearsing our fears over and over again. Think about it. Try to remember the last time you spent hours worrying about something. Did all that mental energy actually change the outcome at the end? Most likely it just left you feeling drained and anxious without any practical benefit. Our brains are naturally wired with what psychologists call a negativity bias. We're more sensitive to potential threats than to positive opportunities. This made perfect sense for our ancestors who needed to be constantly alert to dangers like predators or hostile tribes. But in today's world, this bias often leads us to fixate on unlikely worst-case scenarios, spending our mental energy on problems that will never materialize. The real cost of worry becomes apparent when we see how it affects our ability to act. We become so entangled in hypothetical problems that we lose sight of the concrete steps we could take to improve our situation. In this way, the more we try to control the future through worry, the less actual control we exercise in the present. Carl Jung recognized this pattern and saw that genuine control comes not from exhaustive worry, but from self-awareness. He suggested that we can begin to free ourselves from worry through learning to observe our thoughts rather than becoming completely identified with them. When we can step back and say, I notice I'm having worried thoughts, rather than I am worried, we create a space between ourselves and our thoughts. When worry arises, try asking yourself what specific action you could take right now to address the underlying concern. If there is an action available, taking that step will usually reduce anxiety far more effectively than continued worry. On the other hand, if there's nothing you can do at the moment, acknowledging this fact can help you let go of the illusion that worrying more will somehow change that reality. Now, sometimes the reason for our sense of worry is something much deeper. Carl Jung, through his extensive work in analytical psychology, came to understand that worry frequently happens as a disguise for unresolved emotions that lie buried in our unconscious mind. It points to past experiences and unintegrated parts of ourselves seeking acknowledgement. Jung called it the shadow self, and it describes those aspects of our personality that we've learned to repress, deny, or push away. These might include painful memories, unacceptable desires, or traits that didn't receive approval from parents or society. We hide these parts of ourselves into the shadows of our unconscious mind, hoping they'll disappear. However, what we repress doesn't vanish, it simply finds other ways to express itself. Jung found that when we acknowledge and integrate those aspects of our personalities, they gradually lose their grip over us. The unconscious force that was driving the worry from behind the scenes becomes conscious, allowing us to respond to it directly rather than through the indirect channel of anxious thoughts. This doesn't mean the past experiences themselves change, but our relationship to them transforms. Journaling often can be a particularly effective way to begin this exploration. The act of writing creates a bridge between the conscious and unconscious mind, allowing buried material to surface in a contained way. That's why when persistent worry arises, taking time to write freely about what you're experiencing can reveal to you unexpected valuable connections and insights. Carl Jung developed a concept called individuation. It describes the psychological process through which a person becomes their authentic self. He observed that many people construct their lives around external expectations. They pursue careers their parents valued, adopt beliefs from their social circle without questioning, and make major life decisions based on what seems sensible or acceptable rather than what resonates with their deeper nature. This misalignment often causes anxiety, recurring worry patterns, or a vague sense that something is missing. The disconnection from our authentic self happens gradually and often unconsciously. As children, we naturally learn to adapt to our environment, which is an important skill. However, Jung recognized that in adulthood, continuing to organize our lives primarily around external validation rather than internal truth creates psychological distress, and the resulting worry reflects the self's attempt to communicate that something important needs attention. The practical path of individuation starts with building a connection with our inner self. This can include noticing what Jung called synchronicities. These are meaningful coincidences that keep showing up in our lives. When we repeatedly come across certain themes, people, or opportunities that feel significant, it helps us understand who we really are. Another big reason we get caught up in worry comes from the ego's fundamental fear of uncertainty. Our ego is that part of our psyche concerned with our sense of self and identity. It constantly seeks to maintain a feeling of control and predictability. When faced with life's inherent uncertainties, the ego responds by generating worry as a defensive mechanism, creating an illusion that we are somehow in control of everything, even those things out of our control. Jung recognized that the ego's relationship with uncertainty is like a paradox. While our ego desperately seeks certainty and control, our deepest growth and development as individuals can only occur when we willingly step into the unknown, where you needed to fully trust yourself without knowing exactly where it would lead. That's why Carl Jung believed that to overcome the ego's habit of creating worry, we must build trust in our ability to handle whatever life brings. This doesn't mean giving up on planning or preparation. Instead, it's about knowing when useful preparation turns into ego-driven worry, when our thoughts stop leading to action and start trapping us in anxiety. Over time, we learn to see worry as just one voice among many, not an absolute truth. And in doing so, we begin to treat our thoughts as valuable insights rather than fully identifying with them. Now, if there's one thing you must understand and take away from this video, let it be this one thing. Most of our worry comes from the mind's constant fixation on the past or the future. We rarely feel anxious about what's happening in the present moment. Carl Jung noted how this separation from present reality creates fertile ground for worry to develop and intensify, causing us to lose access to the clarity and peace available only in the now. The present moment offers an antidote to worry. When we're fully immersed in what's happening right now, we discover that most worries exist only in thought, not in our immediate experience. Think of it, right now, at this moment, there's typically nothing actually threatening your well-being. Carl Jung recognized that when we fully engage with the present moment, we gradually shift from trying to control the unknown to developing real confidence in our ability to respond to whatever life brings.